Tonight, deadly storms lash Australia's southeast as wild winds wreak havoc, while Tasmania braces for record-breaking floods. A sea of protest in Israel, but Benjamin Netanyahu ignores the calls for a ceasefire. A handler bitten by a tiger at the Gold Coast Dreamworld theme park. And Lauren Parker captures more gold for Australia, storming home in the para-triathlon in Paris. Hello and welcome to ABC Late News with me, Jade Barker. One woman is dead and thousands are without power after wild weather lashed the country's southeast. Cyclonic winds, storm surges and floods have battered parts of Tasmania and Victoria, bringing down trees and inundating buildings.
Howling winds.
Looks like an actual hurricane out there at the moment.
Sent seas flying. Wow. And trees crashing, leaving a trail of destruction across Victoria. A woman died and her husband was injured when a branch fell at this caravan park in Moama on the New South Wales border.
Upon arrival, emergency services found the cabin severely damaged and unfortunately located a deceased 63-year-old female inside that cabin.
180,000 people were hit with power outages in the state, and the SES received more than 4,000 calls for help.
About 12:30, there was a really loud bang and half the shed roof came off, and then about an hour later, the rest of the shed and the tree came down.
There were similar scenes across Bass Strait. This family from Tasmania's north had a lucky escape.
I was peacefully playing Fortnite in the lounge room, right where that window is near the front door, and I heard a big, almost like the house shook.
Another 47,000 homes lost power in the Apple Isle, and 2 road crew workers were injured.
I understand some of their injuries are quite severe, though not life-threatening.
A series of cold fronts moving across the country's southeast are responsible for the recent run of wild weather, with wind gusts of up to 157 kilometres an hour recorded at King Island overnight. Further south, the River Derwent is swollen and a major dam at Meadowbank is spilling over. This distillery has been inundated, as has this bowls club.
Worried about what's happening right now, but also worried about what the fallout's going to be as well. Lots of cleaning up.
For many locals, this is the highest they've ever seen the river, and they're still on standby.
It's moving real fast, and there's more coming, they say.
The winds at least should ease this evening as this system moves offshore. But there may be more bad weather later this week. Natalie Whiting, ABC News.
Meanwhile, New South Wales was also hit with wind gusts of over 100 kilometres an hour in the Illawarra and Sydney's southwest. A fire affected the back of a storage facility in Minchinbury, with 20 firefighters working to contain it. The gusty weather whipped up a fast-moving grass fire near Blacktown, closing off a major highway and damaging power lines. In Wollongong, a blaze threatened the Princes Highway before being brought under control by water bombers. One woman was taken to hospital in Camden after being hit by a falling tree. A fire in Tomago near Newcastle came dangerously close to a power plant. More than 45,000 homes across the state are still without power. The Treasurer has taken aim at the Reserve Bank, accusing it of smashing the economy with successive interest rate hikes. Economists argue the government's trying to manage expectations ahead of weak economic data.
Full court press in the West.
The Prime Minister and his federal cabinet are in town.
Good morning, great to be here.
High vis and high energy.
Nothing makes me happier than coming to see 12 amazing affordable houses.
Failing to disguise nervousness about a sluggish economy.
I think the Australian people, frankly, expect me to tell it like it is. And I've been making that point for some months. What I said overnight wasn't new.
His statement overnight making multiple mentions of the Reserve Bank's 13 interest rate hikes, saying the impact of interest rate rises are smashing the economy.
I think the government has found this blame the RBA rhetoric quite successful in the past. And I think this shows that they're going to be running this sort of line right through to the election.
The Treasurer out today blaming the Reserve Bank for his failings.
But what appeared to be a criticism the RBA had gone too far, today softened.
Global economic uncertainty and higher interest rates are smashing household budgets and slowing our economy.
Bracing for the latest national accounts figures, tipped to show annual growth will be under 1%, which would be the slowest growth since 1991, outside of figures seen during the pandemic.
These figures are likely to come in weak. We're not talking about a recession, but it certainly feels like a recession.
Many Australians are doing it tough. We have an economy that is growing, but that growth is very modest.
The Albanese government's fate at the next election is inextricably linked to the economy and the lived experience of it by millions of people hit by inflation and higher interest rates. Talk of hammer blows and smashing things hint at mounting frustrations. The Treasurer's powers are limited when the Reserve Bank is operating with determination and fierce independence in its fight against inflation. Stephanie Dalzell, ABC News, Canberra.
Hundreds of thousands of Israeli workers have been on strike in a bid to pressure their government to make a hostage deal in Gaza. Tel Aviv's Labour Court has ordered an end to the strike hours earlier than organisers planned. The public anger was sparked after 6 hostages were found dead in Gaza, shot multiple times at close range.
A sea of outrage on the streets across Israel, from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. Hundreds of thousands unified in anger and despair and threatening to bring the country to a standstill. They accuse the Israeli government of abandoning 6 hostages who were alive just days ago. Now back in Israel in body bags, families are overcome with grief. Protesters claim the Prime Minister has repeatedly torpedoed attempts to reach a ceasefire and hostage release deal, a claim he's denied.
We accuse our government of murdering them, directly accuse our government of murdering these people. Of course, the finger on the trigger was Hamas, but the person behind these murders is our Prime Minister, Bibi Netanyahu.
The government should resign. They should all resign, and we should have elections. And someone should come who can protect us.
Here outside the Prime Minister's office in Jerusalem, there's such a deep sense of anger and grief, but also a prevailing feeling that the government needs to make a hostage deal now, no matter the cost, to get the remaining captives out.
Trying to force the government to act, Israel's biggest workforce union has called for a shutdown of Israel's economy today. 800,000 workers, nearly a quarter of Israel's workforce, have started to strike, closing ports, municipalities, public transport, even Israel's main airport. Their demand: bring Israel's hostages home. Alison Horn, ABC News, Jerusalem.
It's not the first time grief and fury has spilled into Israeli streets, but the massive action could force the country's leader to act. Here's Global Affairs Editor John Lyons.
Israel now faces the real prospect that it will be ground to a halt by the sheer scale of these protests, some of the largest in the country's history. Israel's 800,000 workers from the largest union organisation have been called upon to join the hundreds of thousands of demonstrators already in the streets calling for a ceasefire in the war in Gaza, accusing Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu of neglecting Israeli hostages while prioritising the war with Hamas. The IDF believes that at least a third of the 101 hostages still inside Gaza have died. Netanyahu is increasingly isolated, even as he doubles down on military operations inside Gaza and is opening a new front in the occupied West Bank. Israel is now a country crippled by public anger. Even its international airport will be shut down by strike action. The big question now is how Netanyahu will respond to this unprecedented political pressure.
A teenager has told of the moment his older brother was swept off rocks near the South Australian town of Victor Harbour while posing for a photo. An extensive search operation has so far failed to find the 17-year-old.
An anxious wait for a missing son and brother swept off the SA coast.
My brother said, take my photo. When I take his photo, he slipped his foot, then he went to he died, he dipped on the water.
Originally from Pakistan, Mehdi Habibi has been living in Australia for less than a year. His family had headed to Victor Harbour and Granite Island on Father's Day, a picnic taking a tragic turn when a large wave hit the 17-year-old from behind while he was on the rocks.
The two siblings were close to the water and then they didn't know, so suddenly I think one of them just swept out to the water.
Then you can see the male obviously in distress in the water, and shortly after he disappears from sight.
On the second day of searching, Mehdi's family and close friends are losing hope of seeing him alive again.
Hoping the rescue team find Mehdi, so his body, everyone is very sad.
The boy's aunt says his parents had a sleepless night after the search was first called off at sunset on Sunday.
She's very upset. His father, everyone is upset.
Police, along with other emergency services, resuming their efforts at first light.
We're also dealing with approximately 5-metre swells, which are coming from the south. So obviously that's problematic because that's hitting the southern side of the island.
Search and rescue efforts have continued throughout the afternoon here and further along the coastline, but teams are dealing with challenging conditions with gusty winds and choppy waters.
This incident serves as a reminder to the dangers of the ocean and the importance of remaining in safe areas.
Granite Island has reopened to visitors after the incident. Olivia Mason, ABC News, Victor Harbour.
A blockbuster defamation trial brought by Senator Linda Reynolds against Brittany Higgins has entered its final days. In a blistering submission, Ms Higgins' lawyer described the senator as an unreliable witness whose testimony was gratuitous and self-serving.
Throughout this lengthy trial, Brittany Higgins' lawyer has given little away.
So I'm not going to comment. Ms Young, can you say when Brittany Higgins will appear here in Perth?
Rachel Young SC reserving her powder for her closing address in the fifth and final week. The trials heard competing versions of events about what happened in the aftermath of Miss Higgins' allegation she was raped inside Parliament House in 2019. In a scathing address, Miss Higgins' lawyer questioned the reliability of Senator Reynolds' evidence, describing it as gratuitous and self-serving at times, suggesting Senator Reynolds did not always believe Miss Higgins had been raped. She told the court Miss Higgins only went public with her ordeal for altruistic reasons, motivated to make a profound and lasting impact on the way in which gendered violence and safety issues are addressed in Australian workplaces. She also questioned Senator Reynolds' decision to leak confidential documents about a $2.4 million Commonwealth settlement paid to Miss Higgins, saying it didn't reflect well on the senator that she took that step 10 days after a decision was taken not to proceed with a second criminal trial against Miss Higgins' alleged rapist due to concerns over her mental health. Senator Reynolds claims Miss Higgins and her now husband David Shiraz weaponised her rape allegation in 2021 media interviews to attack her and the Liberal government. But Ms Young has questioned the senator's dogged focus on this alleged politicisation. She says it has no relevance to the actual posts made by Ms Higgins in 2023 that she's being sued for. Senator Reynolds' lawyer will begin his summation tomorrow, with a decision unlikely for a number of months. Rebecca Trigger, ABC News.
An animal handler is recovering in hospital after being attacked by a tiger at Dreamworld on Queensland's Gold Coast. Paramedics were called to the theme park after the 47-year-old woman, one of the park's most experienced tiger handlers, was bitten on the arm. Dreamworld said the incident was rare and it would carry out a review. Workplace Health and Safety Queensland is also investigating. The Queensland Ambulance Service says first aid staff at the theme park did a good job of stopping the bleeding while waiting for emergency services to arrive.
So the patient obviously had received some serious lacerations and puncture wounds from the animal. She was quite pale and feeling unwell.
NT police say their failure to respond to a welfare check before a woman was allegedly killed by her partner will be part of a coronial investigation. They say the huge number of domestic violence reports are overwhelming the force and preventing swift action.
This was a woman's home, but it became a crime scene. A 43-year-old found dead, her 57-year-old former partner charged with her alleged murder. Police today confirming earlier media reports that a call for help was made 9 hours before she was found dead.
Unfortunately, in this circumstance, other jobs were taken as a higher priority, and that will certainly form part of the coronial inquest.
The force defending its failure to respond to welfare concerns raised by Government Social and Family Welfare Department Territory families.
We, as an organisation, receive between 60 and 100 calls of domestic violence incidents in a 24-hour period on average, every day of the week.
The fact that police didn't respond to this welfare check will be the subject of a coronial investigation, but one frontline service has sounded the alarm that when these urgent alerts are raised, in some instances, response times are up to 48 hours.
I want to say that I was really surprised it took so long for police to react, but unfortunately that is the reality on how long it takes for welfare checks to be checked up on.
While workers at the DV frontline acknowledge the intense demand on police services and others, they say change is urgent.
So I'd love to see the professional judgment of, for example, the NGOs that are working in the sector, but also Territory families and anyone else for that matter that knows that there is concerns, for it to have a lot more weight and for it to be acted on accordingly.
Whatever it takes to prevent another fatal tragedy. Miles Holbrook Walk, ABC News.
And if you or someone you know needs help, please contact 1-800-RESPECT by phone or their website. Thousands of employers are failing to pay their staff superannuation, and it's costing workers billions of dollars every year. The problem is worse for women and younger people in lower paid jobs, but new data shows it's also affecting Australians aged over 60.
Nick Mullings is worried he won't have enough money in his retirement. He says he's owed more than $100,000 in wages and super after the firm he worked for collapsed in December.
I received a letter from the ATO that said as the company I worked for had gone into liquidation, they would no longer pursue that on my behalf.
The former business development director says if he doesn't get the money back, it will sting.
What it will prevent me doing is basically going to visit my children overseas and giving me additional flexibility during my period of retirement.
Under the law, employers must pay 11.5% of their employees' earnings into their super fund. But analysis of ATO data shows 1 in 4 workers aren't receiving those contributions, which total $5.1 billion. Of that, workers in their 20s missed out on $959 million, while those in their 60s lost $694 million. While men are more likely to be affected, the industry lobby group says the problem can be worse for women.
Women still retire with about a third less super than men.
The impact of workers not being paid their superannuation compounds over time. The industry estimates Australians are owed almost $42 billion in super contributions over 9 years. The federal government promised by July 2026 it would have laws in place to ensure super is paid at the same time as wages.
We're pleased that they've made a commitment to legislate for payday super, but we want to see that legislation tabled and swiftly passed through the Parliament.
A welcome change, but one that's too little, too late for retirees like Nick. Nassim Khadem, ABC News.
In an area of Australia with soaring dialysis rates, young Aboriginal women are using the ancient practice of bush medicine to comfort patients waiting for kidney transplants. For the women, it's not just a job, but a powerful way to keep their culture alive for generations to come.
In a kitchen in Mabantwa, Alice Springs, Tamara Stewart is crushing leaves on an ancient rock. She's making her late Nana's favourite bush medicine, Aramanka.
I used to take bush medicine to my Nana every day after work. Then I lost her at the start of this year.
For Tamara, it's both symbolic and therapeutic. Her nana died of kidney failure before she could convince her to go on dialysis. Now she hopes to honour her by making bush medicine for others waiting for kidney transplants.
She's always proud of me, and she just wanted me to just keep going forward in my life.
Tamara is one of 3 young Aboriginal women working for Bush Balm, a social enterprise operating out of local not-for-profit Purple House, which runs 22 dialysis clinics across remote Australia.
It's all of their first jobs, and yeah, we have a lot of fun in here.
The women sell the balm through a local store, as well as wholesalers and an online shop, with proceeds used to give free balm to dialysis patients.
So it's really grown a lot since we've had this amazing space. So now we're sending it everywhere, like we send bush medicine to France, to America, to the UK, interstate everywhere around Australia, and to some really remote locations in like Top End and yeah, everywhere.
Tamara feels a sense of pride in continuing her nana's legacy.
Like, teach the younger generation when they come, and that generation can teach that, and can just go on and on and on.
Keeping ancient practices alive for generations to come. Chris Matakrani Fitzpatrick, ABC News, Alice Springs.
Australia has had its most successful day at the Paralympics in Paris with a haul of 10 medals. Nikki Ayres and Jade led the charge when they combined for Australia's first ever gold in rowing.
In the 16 years since rowing was introduced to the Paralympics, Australia had never won a gold. But in the new discipline of PR3 mixed double sculls, Nikki Ayres and Jade made history. In Narooma on the New South Wales south coast, friends and family of Ayres revelled in the triumph.
Super emotional. I've cried probably 4 separate times by now.
In the velodrome, Corey Boddington added a bronze medal to his gold as he anchored the 750-metre team sprint. With Alistair Donohoe and Gordon Allen, the trio had just 3 training sessions to prepare as a team. Ahmed Kelly was incorrectly disqualified after his heat for performing the wrong stroke. The swimmer known as Liquid Nails protested and was reinstated in the 150-metre SM3 individual medley final, where he finished with a silver medal ahead of teammate Grant Scooter Patterson. World champion Rowan Carruthers also took silver, as Italy's Stefano Raimondi won the men's S10 100 metres freestyle. Tom Gallagher was third. The mixed 4x100 metre freestyle relay S14 team of Jack Ireland, Madeline McTurnan, Ruby Storm and Ben Hance finished second behind Great Britain.
While Australian athletes celebrated their results around Paris, the Australian wheelchair rugby team, the Steelers, literally threw away an opportunity to play in the gold medal match.
Turnovers at crucial times proved costly, as Australia had an agonising 52-51 loss to Japan in extra time. The Steelers will meet Great Britain in the bronze medal game. David Mark, ABC News, Paris.
And with the latest Paralympics action, I'm joined now by ABC Sports' Amanda Shalala. Amanda, it was a nail-biting finish to the Steelers' bronze medal match, wasn't it?
Yes, the Australians have come away with the bronze, defeating Great Britain 50 tries to 48, and it was only a couple of turnovers that the Steelers forced late in the game that ended up delivering them the victory. It was a bit of redemption for them after that loss to Japan last night. Riley Batt, who's been an absolute superstar of the Steelers for 20 years, was the man who produced that error against Japan, and he said even after winning this bronze, he was still haunted by it. He couldn't sleep at all because he was thinking about that error, but he was happy to be able to get back up and deliver the Australians what he called a rose gold medal. So it's sweet for the Australians to come away with something from these games after a bit of heartbreak last night. There's been gold for Australia in the para-triathlon today. Lauren Parker has won the women's PTWC event. She came second in Tokyo by 0.01 of a second, and she said every day since then, she has been thinking about winning the gold in Paris. That's exactly what she has managed to do. It was quite an emphatic victory in the end, winning by 90 seconds over the American Kendall Gretsch, who won in Tokyo. And overnight, there could be a couple more gold medals coming for Australia. Dan Michelle and Jamison Leeson will be in action in their respective BC3 individual gold medal matches. So fingers crossed that they can get the job done, but at the very least, they will come away with silvers.
We'll certainly be keeping our fingers crossed. Amanda, thanks so much for that update.
Thanks.
Alexei Popyrin's career best run in a Grand Slam is over after his fourth round defeat at the US Open. The Aussie went down in 4 sets to local favourite Francis Tiafoe. The loss leaves Alex de Minaur or Jordan Thompson to carry the nation's hopes.
He took down Novak Djokovic, but Alexei Popyrin now faced a battle with the New York crowd ready to ride home a favourite son in the so-called city that never sleeps. His hot hand was on early. That's a good shot. But a Tiafoe break had Flushing Meadows on its feet. That went up a level as the American claimed the first set 6-4.
Barely has put a foot wrong.
The energy carried Tiafoe into the second, but Popyrin's power still proved a crowd silencer. You got to give it up to Popyrin. The Aussie's serve is his biggest weapon, though, and it faltered in the second set tiebreak. The Sydney sider had achieved too much in the last month to simply lie down. The third set was all his, 6-2, and back in business.
Game and third set, Popyrin.
As the pressure told on the local hope, a manic New York crowd helped dig him out of it. With Hollywood royalty watching on, Popyrin would defend 2 match points and then have a chance to break back. When that was spurned, his spirit was broken. Tiafoe through to take on Grigor Dimitrov in the quarters. Australia's US Open hopes now resting with one of Alex de Minaur or Jordan Thompson, who face each other tomorrow. Daniel Garb, ABC News.
Sunny day ahead for Brisbane, sunny also for Sydney. In Canberra, some morning frost, then becoming sunny. In Melbourne, a partly cloudy day ahead, the same for Hobart. Adelaide, sunny day. In Perth, there's going to be a shower or two. In Darwin, sunny, and the same for Alice Springs. And that's ABC Late News. I'm Jade Barker. Thanks for tuning in.